Okay, I want to start by just saying a few words about the Sagreras method. I had the good fortune when I first started classical guitar to start with Jaime Giscafre, who was the first person to write a dissertation on Sagreras and was the person who did the translations for this book that most people play from. I'm going to include the public domain early editions by Ricordi here with this video. But this Mel Bay edition is a good one as well. And I guess what I want to say about Sagreras is that the music is sort of close to my heart. I feel like it's a little bit in the family because I had that experience with Jaime early on and had that kind of expert Sagreras scholar as my early teacher. But I think as I've gone along my classical guitar kind of journey, I've touched upon a lot of different things, but I keep returning to the Sagreras. I think because the music has charm and it is based on a harmonic language of triads and seventh chords predominantly that serves as a good foundation for a lot of different other things that you might want to explore. And the music has a sort of folk, like a South American folk aura about it, but it also is sort of a synthesis of a lot of European, like 19th century European composers, Aguado and Soar and Cost. And so it's just a nice amalgamation of styles that I find is a pleasant way, a pleasant environment in which to develop technique. So I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you're either just starting classical guitar or you're looking to review the fundamentals. And so in this video, I'm going to start with lesson number 1, and I'm going to walk through the first few exercises within book 1. And I'm going to do this in a way that maybe is a little more rhythmically forgiving. When you begin to practice the motions involved in classical guitar playing, you might find a pressure from teachers or from other players talking about playing everything on the metronome. And I think there's definitely value in that. But in the beginning, you might experiment with focusing more on the quality of motions, a little bit off of the rhythmic grid, and then as you become more secure in your technique, then put it to the metronome to really sort of make your motions uniform in terms of time. So we're going to start with lesson 1. And the thing to look out for here is to play these rest strokes. Now, when you play a rest stroke, your thumb can be maybe a little bit lower because I'm playing a rest stroke on the high string. And so I want my finger to be extended, more straight, so that I don't feel a lot of resistance. And that the string, I can pass through the string, glide through the string nicely. So the first measure here, we just have just alternating the top E string. And if you're just starting to read music, just look at that number that's in a circle. That's your string number. And over time, you'll learn to associate those note positions with the correct location on the instrument. So if that feels good, we're going to cross onto the second string, then the third string. Now in order to make those string crossings, I'm making a subtle motion with the arm this way. I'm exaggerating it now. But this is what makes the string crossing happen. The fingers are kind of keeping their shape. The hand is keeping its relaxed shape, and I'm going like this. What I'm not doing is keeping my hand stable and then arching the wrist more and more and bending the fingers more to get to the low strings. So let's do the second measure. So we're on the note B, and we play, then the third, the fourth, the fifth, and then you'll notice here the notes have no, what I call a caret mark. They have no mark for the rest stroke because there's nowhere to rest. You could rest on your thumb like this. lot of players do. Now as we come up, we have a little bit of a tricky string crossing each time because we leave off with the M finger and then we have to reach the first finger over. So let's start on this low A. This is measure 5. And then just be really cognizant of this exchange as you cross up to the higher string. And you see what I mean by being flexible with the rhythm and just focusing on the motion and the sound quality. Now, you can practice this also MI. It would be a good thing to do even at the early stage. But this first little lesson actually gives you quite a bit in terms of right hand technique. And also what it does is it gives you the sort of signposts or the landmarks for music reading. So if you're just starting with reading, memorizing the location of each of the open strings gives you a basis for later reading. Because you'll know that, for example, it's coming up in the next lesson, but you'll know that the note C at the beginning of lesson 2 sort of sits between the A and the D on the staff. And so it's just a good exercise for orienting yourself for music reading. Lesson number 1, little good reference one. So let's move on to lesson 2 now. Now here for the first time, Sagreras introduces the left hand. And you have really just the third and second fingers, these inner fingers being introduced. And I'll just say a few words about left hand technique. The thing is we want to be sure that we're pressing close to the fret. The closer we are to the fret, the easier it is to get a clean sound. We can use less effort if we're close to the fret. And when I say close, I mean the 3rd fret, this wire, I'm pressing right behind it. I'm not in the center. So this is wasted energy. That little distance translates into a lot of wasted energy. So we start with that and we play C. Now take your time and prepare the next string open. And then take your time and prepare E, F, G. Now, another benefit of the Sagreras method early on is that he's teaching you solfege, the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. You can sing these. I won't torture you with my singing right now, but it might be a useful thing to get that solfege, that ear training and a little singing into your practice as well. So you could sing do, re, mi, fa, sol, etc. Or just hum. If you just want to hum, make a connection between the voice and the instrument. So this is like a little mountain. It goes C up to G and back down to C. Very simple, but worth practicing with, a lot of diligence, a lot of attention, and demanding a good sound. One thing you could think about is kind of preparing the right hand slightly before the left hand in general in guitar playing. So, of course, we start with both fingers touching. We've got the 3rd finger touching here. We've got the index touching here. But then my right hand middle finger is preparing the string before I leave off. And then here, my right hand index touches slightly before the 2nd finger presses. My right hand middle touches slightly before my 3rd finger touches. That will give you a lot of security in your technique, and it's a good model, I think, rather than thinking that both actions happen absolutely simultaneously. Okay, on to lesson 3. Now, lesson 3 is identical to lesson 2, except that he sort of combined lessons 1 and 2 to create this new lesson 3. It's repeated notes. So we start like this, and we move up the scale. Careful not to rush as you ascend. mention two things about this study and in guitar playing in general. One thing, your unused left-hand fingers, sometimes all of your fingers are unused if you're playing just an open string. Keep them close and pointed towards the strings. So when you start this exercise, your third finger's down, and then when you play the D, keep your fingers close. Don't do this. Don't be one of these people where you go way off and my fingers are pointing towards the wall and then they have to come back to play the E. That's one thing. So keeping the fingers close and pointed at the strings even when they're inactive. A second thing you could work on, and this is something we're going to investigate increasingly as we go through the method, is sort of cleanliness with respect to resonances on the guitar. What do I mean? Well, when I play C, that's all good. I play D, I have a rest stroke, so that silences the previous string. I play up. Now when I play F, G, as I come down, the G will overlap. It's an open string ringing. It will overlap with this F and I'll get this sound, which is not really what we want. We want just a one note replacing the next sort of sound. And so in this context, now we'll explore many different ways to do this, but in this context, the way that I would do it, when I get up to the top of the mountain, I get up to Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, I'm up on G, and I'm coming down to F. When I place my third finger on the F, I touch slightly with this part of the finger, I touch the third string to silence it. So I'll demonstrate this for you with just, this would be the end of measure 4, I'm sorry, the end of measure 5 going into measure 6. I'm playing the G. Now when I play the F, that is what I often say, it kills two birds with one stone. I'm getting the note and I'm silencing the previous note. So it's M, I. If we look at just the transition between measure, at the end of measure 5 into the beginning of measure 6, I play M, I. You see, if I don't do that and I touch more with more of a vertical finger, I'm going to get this sound. And, you know, both notes ringing together, and that's not what we want. So, I think that's enough on lesson 3. Let's see. I'm going to try to keep these videos at about 15 to 20 minutes. So I think we'll do one more study here in volume 1, book 1. Let's go to lesson 4. We'll talk about lessons 4 and 5, I think. So here is the same thing again, only he's intensifying the interaction with the hands a little bit by giving you a little bit less time with the repetitions. So in other words, we play in lesson 4, we play C, C, D, D, E, E, F, F, G, F, E, D, C, 2, 3, 4, and hold notes for their full value. Okay, so we want to become accustomed to that, so we just do that as a matter of course. There's not a lot of new information here, just that we're trying to play more or less legato. When I say legato, I mean connected, and so you'll hear I'm actually playing slightly detached intentionally because I want to feel the security on the string. But it's possible to play at the same tempo, the same speed, but spend a little bit less time in preparation. And what that translates into is that the sounds, they become more seamless. It's more challenging to do. I'll demonstrate first a detached way of playing for security and for a little preparatory practice, and then I'll, at more or less the same tempo, I'll play with less time on the string, so there's less daylight in between the notes. So take a listen. Here's more detached. And then more legato. It's a feeling a little bit more when I play legato that I'm coming at the string from mid-air, whereas when I play detached, I get to the string and I wait for a brief moment. Let's talk about lesson 5. What's different here? Well, he's kind of doubled the tempo again in terms of the interaction between the hands. Now, instead of having this mountain shape where you have 4 or 2 repetitions per note, here it's just single notes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, do, re, mi, fa, sol, right? So that's the first kind of group of book 1, those first 5 studies. Practice these, and when you feel comfortable, move to the next set. Good luck.